It's time for another journey deep into the world of incredible archaeology. It's a topic we talk about a lot on this channel, and yet we never run out of things to talk about. There's always something new to look at or a mystery to solve, and sometimes we even throw in the odd find from the world of paleontology, too. The coastlines of Europe have changed dramatically over the past few thousand years. Most of Europe was once connected by a land area known as Doggerland, which made it possible for hunter-gatherers to walk from the coast of Norfolk in England all the way to Germany. Doggerland was eventually flooded by the North Sea and disappeared beneath the waves, breaking the land connection and creating the British Isles by cutting the islands off from the rest of Europe. In December 2013, a huge storm off the east coast of England shifted layers of sediment beneath the water and revealed the presence of one of Doggerland's old forests. There are countless trees and bushes down in the depths, all of which might have been hidden for up to 10,000 years. The forest is interesting, but marine archaeologists believe that there might be far more interesting things than trees hidden in the forest. This land would likely have been occupied, and there could be artifacts, human burials, and other discoveries to be made by digging into it. The only problem is that digging up land that's already underwater is easier said than done. In late 2016, archaeologists found what's thought to be a legendary ancient city of gold in the Honduran rainforest. In January 2017, several members of the expedition were struck down by a rare and terrible disease that can, in some circumstances, cause people's faces to fall off. It's no wonder that people say the fabled city of the monkey god is cursed. One of the members of the expedition was Douglas Preston, a best-selling author who's been fascinated with the legendary city of the monkey god for almost his entire life. One of the legends associated with the city is that it was abandoned in the 16th century, when all of its residents were afflicted by a plague, which they interpreted as a punishment from the gods. In reality, it's far more likely that their illnesses came from contact with Europeans who brought diseases they had no natural immunity to. Also known as the White City, the city of the monkey god was found close to the border between Honduras and Nicaragua. Many precious artifacts have since been removed from the site since its discovery, but given that more than half of the people who took the artifacts away contracted a parasitic disease called leishmaniasis, perhaps they should have left everything where it was. Did the ancient Romans create an unlikely vineyard in England 2,000 years ago? It seems unlikely, and yet it's possible. This irrigation system was discovered in Cambridge in 2014 and is undoubtedly the work of the ancient Romans. It's thought to be the oldest system of its kind in the British Isles, with an estimated age of 1,950. As you might expect, it's a far more basic system than anything you might recognize as a vineyard today, consisting of little more than pit wells and planting beds. History runs deep in this part of Cambridge, with evidence of settlements existing all the way back to the late Neolithic period of 4,200 years ago. It remained in use throughout the Bronze and Roman ages, with the most recent land use being the creation of practice trenches for recently recruited soldiers during the Second World War. The Romans grew asparagus here, and when the weather turned dry, they'd collect water from the pit wells and pour it into the ditches to ensure the crops remained fed. The beds are parallel, arranged along a slope, and connected directly to a natural water source. It's through methods like this that the Romans introduced horticulture to Britain. They definitely grew asparagus at this site, but whether or not they also produced wine is a matter of some conjecture. You can usually rely on a museum to provide explanations for the historical artifacts that are placed on display inside them, but museums don't always have all the answers either. Take the Bruni Museum in Lambayeque, Peru, for example. There you'll find this strange carved figure that appears to be sitting on top of a bullet or a torpedo. It's impossible not to look at it and see that it's a depiction of someone or something flying through the air. That's an unbelievable concept when you consider the fact that it's thousands of years old. Peru is a land with a rich and complex cultural history, going back to the time of the Incas and even earlier. There are many examples of hard-to-understand structures and artifacts in this place of the world, and this baffling figurine is just one of many such items that belong on that list. We have no idea what the creature is supposed to represent. It has a human face, but an animal's tail, and seems to be wearing a hat, and we don't even understand the object it sat upon. The whole thing is an enigma. Modern teeth, especially American teeth, tend to be brighter, whiter, and shinier now than at any point in human history, which could lead you to believe that dental science has come a long way in the past 2 or 3 decades. That might not necessarily be the case. Here's some shocking evidence that dentists provided cosmetic treatments like implanting jewels in teeth and creating golden dental bridges 14,000 years ago. This unlikely phenomenon was identified by Stefano Benazzi from Italy's University of Bologna in 2018, after studying the exceptionally well-preserved remains of a young man from the late Upper Paleolithic era. The precise location of the skeleton's discovery is unknown, but it's known to come from the north of the country. Scanning electron microscopy revealed deliberate chipping and cut marks on the teeth, probably caused by flint tools in an attempt to treat a cavity. The same archaeologist made another striking discovery a year earlier, when he identified the world's oldest fillings in a set of 13,000-year-old front teeth from elsewhere in Italy. We know that bejeweled dental implants were all the rage in the kingdom of the Maya 1,600 years ago, but the Italians appear to have started far earlier. The history of the artifacts known as the Jordan lead codices is controversial. The lead books were allegedly discovered deep in a cave in Jordan in March 2011. The metal pages contain entries related to the Kabbalah school of Jewish mysticism. After a year of investigation, numerous experts, including those employed by the BBC in the UK, dismissed them as fakes. 4 years later, an investigation by the UK's University of Sussex was able to prove that the lead used in the books is ancient, but couldn't determine the age of the inscriptions upon them. Since then, nobody's been able to agree on whether the codices are real or fake. The pages are 2,000 years old, and so are the fragments of leather that bind them together. But historians have said that the inscriptions are full of errors and are inconsistent, which suggests that someone found an ancient book and attempted to make it more interesting by trying to pass it off as religiously significant. Those who believe in the veracity of the codices say that what's written on the pages is written in code, and this is why they don't appear to make sense. One of the codices even bears an impression of a human face, which some scholars believe to be the oldest known portrait of Christ. We don't expect this debate to end anytime soon. About 13,700 years ago, a tribe of Magdalenian hunter-gatherers took shelter in a Spanish cave. While they were there, they etched some markings onto the cave wall. After studying the markings since 2009, archaeologists now believe that these markings represent the oldest map in Western Europe. A team of experts from the University of Zaragoza has interpreted the etchings as depictions of peaks, rivers, scrublands, and ponds. There also appear to be a few representations of animals included, perhaps as examples of what could be hunted in each area. This might be a plan for a coming hunt, or even the story of a hunt that happened in the past, but including a visual guide to the area the hunt happened in would still make it a map. The alleged map is inside the legendary cave of Abonts la Misulo, which is already notorious because it's said by local folklore to be the home of bird-footed nymphs. Legends aside, it was probably a strategically important place for ancient hunters because of the excellent view it provided of the canyons below. More than 2,000 years ago, somebody living on the tiny English Channel island of Jersey hid 50,000 coins from the advancing Roman Empire by burying them. In 2012, the coins were rediscovered by a pair of friends scouring farmland on the island with their metal detectors. Richard Miles and Reg Mead are now responsible for the largest haul of ancient Celtic coinage ever to be discovered in Europe. The coins weigh 3/4 of a ton and have an estimated value of more than 10 million pounds. Whoever buried the coins went to great lengths to ensure that nobody else would find them. They were buried in a hole more than 3 feet deep and stashed within a mound of clay. In fact, they were so well hidden that even the person who hid them may never have been able to find them again, which might explain why they never dug them back up again. It's likely that the owner of this vast wealth was a member of the Coriosolitae tribe of northern Brittany. The coins might even have represented the entire wealth of the tribe, but we'll never know for sure. There's no reliable photographic or written evidence that human beings have ever encountered aliens, and yet we all have an idea of what aliens might look like. They're small gray creatures with big black eyes and elongated skulls. If we ever saw such a creature's skull, it would probably look exactly like these strange skulls found in Peru. Looking at them, it's no wonder that many conspiracy theorists claim that they're alien skulls. But could there be another reason for their bizarre appearance? The so-called Paracas skulls are genuine artifacts, so they once belonged to living creatures, and they weren't made by fraudsters. When photos of them appeared on the internet in 2014, it was said that the skulls contained non-human DNA, but no evidence of that claim has ever been provided. Instead, it's more likely that the 2,000-year-old skulls belonged to humans from remote Andean villages, where the heads of babies would be wrapped in rope and wood that encouraged the bones to grow into this unusual shape so that they would more closely resemble the deities these remote tribes believed in at the time. Finding an old Roman mosaic in Italy might not sound especially rare or implausible at first, but wait until you hear where this one was discovered. It's the beautiful floor of what would once have been an enormous Roman villa, and it was found beneath the mud and grass of a vineyard in Negrar di Valpolicella, slightly north of Verona. The frustrating thing about this discovery is that it could have been made a century ago. Archaeologists noted the presence of Roman artifacts in the vineyard in 1922, but decided there was no point in doing any further digging and left the scene alone. If they'd gone another few feet into the earth, they'd have found the mosaic floor there and then. The vineyard is part of a commune, so any further excavations will have to be carried out with the permission of the commune's occupants, who would presumably have to be financially compensated for the temporary or permanent loss of their vineyard. That extra layer of complication might mean that the full villa is never excavated, and we never get an answer to the question of who thought planting a vineyard on a mosaic floor was ever a good idea in the first place. Archaeologists aren't the only people with a keen interest in ancient artifacts. Criminals are always looking to get their hands on them too. There's an enormous black market trade in valuable artifacts, but sometimes those black market goods get intercepted by the police. In 2015, police in Tokat, Turkey, managed to seize this incredible 1,000-year-old gold leaf Bible. It's one of the most spectacular Bibles of this era ever found. The language inscribed upon its pages is ancient Assyrian, but what makes it especially unusual is the number of illustrations on its pages. Many of them are pictures of Christ, looking very different to the way he's portrayed in Western Bibles. The cover of the tome has been almost totally destroyed by the ravages of time, but the 10 pages within it are in surprisingly good condition. Finding out who made it will probably never be possible, but an analysis of the pages suggests it was made in Anatolia. Very few Christian artifacts from the Dark Ages have survived to the present day, so this rare artifact might yet shed new light on how the religion survived and progressed during those years. Up in the mountains of Crimea, you'll find an ancient cave city known as Mangup Kale. This is a little-known place with a mysterious history, part of which relates to the long-lost kingdom of Feodoro, an early Christian principality. The caves effectively made a natural fortress. Reaching them would be a difficult task, even for the people who lived there, and an attacking army would have had almost no chance. Most historians concur that it was a Byzantine emperor who ordered the first of the buildings to be erected here, sometime around the year 500. That first building was called Doros, which was still in use by the 13th century as part of the Crimean Guthia. 200 years later, the whole kingdom of Feodoro fell to the Ottomans. They purged Mangup Kale with fire, but the Turks immediately rebuilt it and gave it the name we use today. Only Crimea became Russian territory during the 18th century did the last of the occupants leave, and it's been standing empty ever since. All we have to remember them by today are the ancient frescoes that cover the rock.
Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!